So Kat Stearns is a social media strategist. She also works with Jonathan Christian where we make stuff happen. And she's going to talk about how to manage your social media using apps and Hootsuite and many more. So why don't we give her a huge round of applause, Kat Stearns.
Thank you, Ricky. So how many of you have one business that you're currently managing social media for, whether it's a company or whether it's your own? Perfect. And how many of you have multiple accounts? Maybe you have a company you work for, and then you have your own personal. Wow, a lot of people. Great. I love it when there's a little bit of variety with that. So I'm really excited to talk about today's topic with management. And I laugh and say that I pulled the short straw because it's not the fun and exciting and the sexy conversation about strategy and engagement, but I do think that being able to manage your social media is one of the most important things that you can do. Because I'm sure we've all had those situations where you go online to quickly comment back or to leave a message to someone, and we fall into that trap where we're on there for hours and we have no idea what we've actually done, right? Oh, exactly. Or we've been in those situations too where it's like we know we have to post something today, and all we can do is stare at a blank screen, and we have no idea what we're going to be able to talk about. So what I want to be able to do is to help give you some of the tools, some of the strategies, and some different things that you can take away to hopefully get you away from that little vortex that we kind of get pulled into, and give you some tools to be able to manage your social media more effectively. Does that sound good? Perfect. So this conversation here is really for you guys. So as we go along, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I will do my best to be able to answer any of the questions that we can. We do have a limited amount of time, and they have a clock going here for me. So if I don't get a chance to answer your question, feel free to come and find me during one of the breaks or right afterwards as well, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So before we get started, I just want to share a little bit about my personal story and how I got started as well. So I've been in the online and marketing space for about 12 years. I started off in the music industry when it was really just MySpace, and then moved into the corporate world and did a lot of work there. I'd always worked for companies. I'd never really had my own full-time business, and it was something I just started to dabble in. But about 3 years ago, that changed. My cousin, who was just in his early 30s, passed away unexpectedly from brain cancer. And it was one of those things that happened that really shakes up your life. And I remember sitting there at the funeral and watching all those pictures go by of him and his family, and I remember just thinking how short life really is. And I realized that as much as I like my life, I don't love my life. I work at a corporate job, I go into work, long hours, commute, all the rest of it. And so I decided to make a big change. One of the things I'm very passionate about is helping businesses and organizations tell their story and make a difference in the world. So I went in on Monday morning and gave my resignation and had no idea what was going to turn out. But I had a huge amount of support from people like Jonathan and Ricky and Matt and Bosco that totally got behind me and really helped me be able to create an organization that I love. And we work with a lot of medium and large-sized companies to help them to create strategies and help them really find ways to be able to use social media effectively for their business. And I forgot I have to tell people to switch the slides. So next slide, please. So you can feel free to connect with me online as well too as we go along, and more than happy to be able to answer any questions you have. So as we've done a lot of work with these companies, we found that there's been a couple of things that they tend to run into when they go to create strategies. Next slide. There's two situations. The first one is this one, where you have this amazing marketing plan together. You've got your ads going out on the newspaper, you've got TV ads going, you have all of this really great strategies going on, and then all of a sudden you go, that's right, we should probably do social media too. So you throw something quickly on Twitter, quickly on Facebook, and that's all you do. Or there's the second one, next slide, where you look at it and you think, I'm going to go on social media and that's going to solve all of my problems. And social media is an ingredient, it's not the entree. So it's really when you take a step back and you look at using social, you need to remember that you have to pair the offline with the online and bring the two of those together. And the speakers before me, like Shane, talked a lot about that. So what I want to be able to do is that once you've created that strategy, talk to you about where you go from here. One of the biggest questions that we get is then which platforms do I go into? Next slide. So picking your platforms is one of the most important things. And it's one of the biggest questions you want to have. So I want to take away a little bit of anxiety that some of you might have, that you do not need to be on every single social platform. The panel we had beforehand here, they talked about how every platform is the greatest platform, and they all are. if you use them appropriately. Next slide. There's hundreds of different platforms out there, and it really depends on what you want to be able to do, what your goals, what your objectives are. So what I really encourage all of you to do is to walk away with an idea that you want to create what I call primary accounts and secondary accounts. Next slide. So primary accounts, these are going to be the 2 or 3 accounts that you are going to focus on a weekly or a daily basis. For those of you that have an agency, you might want to increase this to a few more. But for the majority of us, social media is only a small portion of what we do because we have businesses to run. So you want to pick those 2 or 3 that you're going to dive really deep into. It's where your audiences are going to hang out. It's where you're going to want to spend the most amount of time being able to engage with that. The next slide. Then you want to also pick your secondary accounts. These are accounts that maybe you want to start to test out, see how you can be able to use these as your tools, or maybe these are platforms that you also know you need to have because you manage a business, like Google+. Google+ is one of those ones that any business that has a physical location definitely needs to have. But it might not be a platform that you're really seeing the return on, so you might not spend every single day being in there, but you might go in there once a month to check your reviews, to check everything, make sure it's all up to date. So I want you to take a step back and say that, yes, it's very exciting to look at all of these accounts that are out here and all of the potential, but what you want to avoid is having 12 or 15 accounts, and all you're going to do is just go and post the exact same message on each platform and expect to have results. So really take some time to focus on what you want to make your primary and your secondary accounts. Next slide. The next tool that you definitely want to use is that branding is so important. So to save you a little bit of time from going in and signing into each platform and figuring out if your usernames are available or not, is to use this free tool called Namecheck. It is a one-stop shop where you can quickly go online, type in a username, and see where it's available and where it is not available for all of the social platforms. It's such an awesome tool because it's going to save you a lot of work of going in there, picking all your usernames, and then finding out that you don't have the username you want for Instagram. So this is going to be an awesome tool for you to be able to use. Next slide. So the next thing you want to do, and this is getting really down to basics, but you want to stay organized. It's really funny. A lot of people might think this is really funny, but you want to have a place where all of your logins are in one place. You can use even just a Word document, a spreadsheet, or tools like LastPass or a lot of other ones. But you would be surprised how many people we talk to when we say, what are your login details for Google Plus or for your analytics? And they don't know what that is. Or they realize that they have 5 Gmail accounts and they have no idea what's attached to it. So write all your logins in one place and keep them organized there. The other thing that we always like to do as well when we're working with clients is to really help them to organize all their content in one area. And if you can, save it in a place where it's easily shareable and accessible by the rest of your team. So using, again, free tools like Google Drive or like Dropbox, and there's a lot of other apps out there as well, will help you to make sure that everything is in the same place, making sure you guys are using the same images, the same documents, the same information, and you're not having to go back and forth making sure everybody has the latest version of things. Plus, it makes it super easy for you to be able to access your content from anywhere that you need to. So keeping everything in one area is going to be really key. Next slide, please. So this is what I think is probably one of the most important documents to helping you stay organized and helping you to create content. How many of you have a content calendar? And how many of you don't even know what a content calendar is? Awesome. Okay, so a content calendar is essentially one place where you can keep all of your information together, all of your plans for your campaigns, all of the sales, all of the content you're going to plan out there, all of the action items that you need to do, putting it all in one area. There is a lot of different content calendar tools that you can be able to download that can really help to keep you organized. And I will have a special treat at the end to be able to have you download our content calendar that we use on a daily basis. So a couple of key things that we find tends to work really good when you're creating a content calendar is one is you want to have one section where we call that our annual calendar. So you're looking at your whole entire year, and it's a really good idea to get with your team or even just yourself at the beginning of the year, sit down and do a brainstorming session. Look at your year coming up and say, okay, what are the things we have going on? Are we going to be launching any new products? Are we opening any new locations? Are we going to do any campaigns? Do we have any trade shows we're going to? What are the things that you're doing, whether it's online or offline? and write that out in your calendar for the entire year. That's really going to help you to look at what you have coming up and plan your content and look at ways that you can share the things that are going to be online and offline. The next thing that we include in our content calendar in that annual part is also looking at some of the national and global events that take place. So these are things like the first day of spring, New Year's Day, Christmas Day, National Coffee Day, National Chocolate Day. Finding any of these national days that apply to your industry can be extremely helpful. The reason why they're helpful is that if you happen to, say, own a coffee shop and today's National Coffee Day, why not put a little promotion out there that says that come in and get 1 cup of coffee, get the second one free. You can start to find these national things that take place and help you to come up with other ideas and other campaigns that, again, can help you to create content, get your message out there, and do it in a really fun way. So going and planning out that content calendar at the beginning of the year can help you really easily find those opportunities. The second tab that you want to have is now going to be a lot more detailed. So it's looking at that big annual calendar, and now we want to break it down into monthly and daily tasks. So we include another tab there that now we start to look at everything from just a month-to-month perspective. Stopping and looking and saying, okay, what do we have going on this month? In June, we have Father's Day, we have the longest day of the year, we have summer, we have all these different events that are taking place, and writing those out and seeing if there's an opportunity for you to jump on those conversations, organically share some content, have them align with your organization as well. And then it's also looking at what's going on within your business and seeing and just mapping everything out so that we're not reactive to it. And so that you know that, okay, if we're going to be running an ad in a newspaper, or we know that we're going to be doing a talk like this, what are some other things that you can start to do to help to create content around it and to tell your story? The other thing that we like to do and include with our monthly calendar as well is what we call theme days. So some really popular theme days that a lot of you probably know are your Throwback Thursdays and your Sunday Fun Days. Those are really common ones that a lot of people tend to pull off of. So it's not saying every single Thursday you have to do a Throwback Thursday, but it might be a really fun way for you to be able to share maybe a success or a project or something that happened a few years ago through a Throwback Thursday. So creating some other theme days as well. So you can have maybe a Tuesday Tips Day. You might decide that you want to be able to have a lot of other fun days as well. So just looking at those days and saying, can we create a theme day with that to help us to create more content? Once you start to plan out that month, you'll start to see that you'll actually have very little gaps, and you'll start to see some opportunities of some overlap of how you can be able to create additional content and be able to manage it. What we like about having with this content calendar as well is that we start to be able to color code things, and we are able to have it where people can be assigned certain tasks so that, again, it's a centralized document that's living, breathing. So if you do have a team of 1 or 2 people or a team of 5 or 10 people, it can be in one place and really easy for you to manage. What we also include are some of those little tasks that we always forget to include. Things like changing your Facebook cover photo, changing your link in your Instagram bio, pinning posts to top, promoting things. Having those little reminders in a content calendar can help you remember when you need to make these changes. So it can be very helpful. And the great thing is that when you write it down, it comes out of your head, and you can focus on the other things that are a lot more important as well. Next slide. So the big question is, how much should I post? And the short answer is it really depends. It depends on a number of different factors. How long you've been on the platform. Is it a primary platform? Is it a secondary platform? How is your audience? What's the content? There's a lot that comes into it. So what I really encourage you to do is yes, to look at some of what the recommendations are for the best times to post and the amount of times you should be posting content, but more importantly, really get to know your audience. See how they engage with your content. If you realize that you're posting once or twice a day and your second post isn't getting much engagement, pull it back to 1 post. If you feel like your posts are getting more and more engagement the more you post, start to increase that. So play around with it a little bit and really start to feel what works best for you versus what's more the industry standards. Next post. The biggest thing, though, that I want to encourage with you is that rather than saying, I need to post something 3 times a day or I need to post something 5 times a day, I want you to post with purpose. It is better for you to create less content, but make it really engaging, make it really good, make it that killer content that people want to read, versus that content that's just that I just want to throw something up online because I know I have to. You're not going to see the engagement, and people will tell the difference between that content that you're throwing up there that's just that, oh, they had to throw something up, versus that content that you spent some time being able to focus on. So again, using your content calendar to help plan everything out for you can be very helpful in ensuring that your content's always going to be really good content and information that people get excited to what they want to see. Next slide. The next thing you want to be focusing on when you start to look at being able to manage your content is reviewing your analytics. There's a lot of great data in there when it comes to reviewing your analytics to be able to tell you what's working and what's not working. Next slide. If you go into the back of Facebook, you can go in there and you can see what types of content people to engage with, or what they're engaging with, who your audience actually is, what their demographics are, what they're interested in. You can find out, you can get an idea of the best times to post. Same with Twitter, same with Instagram, same with a lot of these platforms like they were talking about earlier. Going in and reviewing those analytics and taking a look at what's working and what's not working can help you to go and figure out how you need to craft your content a little bit more. So spend a little bit of time going into and reviewing those analytics. That's again why it's so important to not stop and think that you have to be on every single platform, because there's no way that you could go this detailed into multiple platforms while still trying to run your business as well. Next slide. So the other thing that's really helpful in being able to help you to manage your time is creating systems. Creating systems and knowing that when you're going to go into a platform that you're only going to spend a couple of minutes here. Your tasks are to only do these things. If you write those tasks out in on your content calendar, it's really easy to know that when I go in on Monday, I have to do these things. When I go in on Sunday, I have to do these things. But using the platforms and helping you to create some tools within those can be very helpful too. So turning on notifications on Instagram for the accounts that you really want to stay on top of can be very helpful. If you know that there's some key clients or there's some key people that you want to make sure you're always on top of their posts, you're always engaging with them, turning on those notifications. Creating Twitter lists, that's a really big one. Twitter is one of those ones that you definitely want to be there engaging and retweeting content. So creating lists or following other people's lists so that you're not always having to go in there and try and search through and find people and trying to remember who you need to be able to engage with. Having those lists already created can be extremely helpful. And so looking at the tools that you have available to you, a lot of them have these systems put together already for you to be able to help you to better organize and to manage your content and keep on top of it. Next slide. The biggest thing, only turn on the notifications that matter. We all fall into this where you go into a platform, you have everything going together, and all of a sudden your phone starts going off, and you're seeing all of these likes, all of these comments, all of these new followers, and your phone's just going off, and that's going to be very distracting. So stop and think about what type of notifications you really need to have. For myself, it's really just knowing that I don't have to have the notifications of how many people are following the accounts and how many people are liking. I want to know when people are commenting. I want to know when people send me direct messages so I can get and respond to those right away. The rest of the things, I'm going to put some time aside during the day and go in there for 15 minutes and look at some of those other engagements that take place. But I don't need to have those notifications every single time that they happen in real time on my phone or on my desktop as well. Next slide. So that's kind of the overall look and feel of how you want to be focusing on managing your content and managing your strategy with it. It's really taking that step back, taking some time to be able to figure out what platforms you want to focus on, planning out your content, and now scheduling out. But it's really helpful to have a couple of tools that are going to be able to really help you to be able to do your job a little bit better. So these are the 5 tools that I tend to find to be the most helpful. Next slide. Number 1 is mobile apps. These can be super helpful because, again, you can be in a situation like this where it's really easy for you just to be able to tweet, to update things to Facebook, to be able to interact in real time. So apps can be very, very helpful if you download the mobile versions. As well, it can be really annoying at times too, because now you get all those notifications. So it's really important, again, if you're downloading these mobile apps, go in, turn off those notifications that you don't need, and really focus on having only the things that you need to have. Next slide. So how many of you use any sort of tool to schedule your content? Yes, perfect. So I have a question in the back there. Do you? Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. So how many of you guys use a tool to schedule your content? Perfect. So one of the favorite tools that I like to use is Hootsuite. There's a lot of tools that are out there that can help you to schedule your content, but Hootsuite tends to be one of my favorite ones. For one of the main reasons is that you can pretty much pull all of the platforms that you work with into that one platform. So it's really great for you to be able to have a one-stop shop where you're able to go in, plan your content, and be able to help to schedule all of that out. Plus, the benefit with Hootsuite is that there's a lot of added functionality you can bring into it. So you can create things like feeds for all of the people that, again, you want to follow that you've put onto lists. You can do searches for keywords and key phrases. You can be able to run your ads. You can do a lot of different things in that one dashboard. Plus, if you have a team, you can be able to assign people different tasks and assign people different responsibilities to respond back to people as well. So it's a really great opportunity for you to be able to have everything in one place, so you're not having to go into multiple different platforms and tools. There's only 2 platforms that we don't spend a lot of time scheduling in here. One of them is Facebook. Facebook has its own built-in scheduler that a lot of you have probably seen. We find to use that one a lot better because you're able to do a little bit more functionality, and from what we've noticed, Facebook tends to like it when you're on Facebook and you're posting content directly there. So we use Facebook Scheduler for that, and then we also use another tool, next slide, called OnlyPult for Instagram. This is probably one of the coolest apps that I have ever used. So as was mentioned a little bit earlier, Instagram has made some changes with their API. This tool has been approved, so it is still working right now. What's great about this tool is that when you go to schedule something on Instagram through Hootsuite, it doesn't actually post it until you go into the Hootsuite tool and approve it. This posts it directly. So one of the clients that is a custom log home building company, we find that their best time to post content is at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. I am not going to get up at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning to post that content. This tool helps us to do it, and it automatically goes out for us. The added bonus is that it also has a lot of analytics in the back end as well too. So it's really great for us to be able to go in there, be able to see again, what are the best times to post, where's our demographic coming from. All of that information is available to us. So OnlyPult I find to be very handy when you're talking about using Instagram for that. Next slide. So how many of you are graphic designers? Not very many of us, right? Exactly. Imagery is such an important thing online. It is a very visual word, as we've all heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So the more images that you can have online, the better. But being able to create those really amazing images can be very time consuming. And if you're not a graphic designer and you're a one-man or a one-woman show, it can be very difficult. Canva is a really awesome free tool that you can be able to use to create some awesome imagery for all of your social platforms. Couple of cool functionalities with this. Number one is that it already has the built-in templates for the proper sizing, the proper dimensions for a lot of the social platforms that you're wanting to use. So if you're wanting to create YouTube cover photos, if you're wanting to create images for your blog, there's a lot of these predetermined dimensions already in Canva. So it makes it really simple and easy for you to be able to do that. They have awesome tutorials as well, so that you're able to go in there and you're able to easily just be able to create these fantastic looking images. They do have a free version that you're able to use, and then they also have a paid version where if you have a team, you can be able to pull people into that team. And one of my favorite things is that you can go and you can create one image, say for Facebook, and then the paid version, you can use a magic resize that will magically resize that image for any of the other platforms that you want. So again, it's making it really simple, really easy for you to be able to create multiple images that are properly sized for the platforms. And I think that that's a really key thing. We get so caught up in this idea that we want to get our message out again to so many platforms as quickly as we possibly can, when really if we take a step back, we really want to make sure we're putting out the right content on each platform. So making sure your images are sized properly for Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram and all the other platforms that you're using. So using a tool like this can help you make sure that everything's going to be sized accordingly. There's also a lot of free tools out there that have royalty-free images that you can use. Canva has a bunch of that built into it, where you can buy a lot of these images through iStock and a number of those other paid ones for only $1. And then there's other platforms. One that I really like is librastock.com. And that's a really great free tool that you can be able to use, where it scans up to 43 royalty-free databases all in one place, where you can put in whatever keywords you want for an image and it pulls back all the results. So really having strong images and making sure you're using that properly, using something like Canva, can help you stay organized, help make sure you have these great images for the content that you want to share. Next slide. So this app, I think, has been one of my life-saving apps. It's called Gramma. And how many of you tend to want to find hashtags for your content, whether it's for Instagram, which is probably the most popular? Yeah? This is an awesome app. It's a free app. It's one of those apps that's going through the approval system due to the recent API changes to Instagram, but we have talked to them and they are going through the process, so it will be active again once everything's completed. But what I love about this tool here is that there's a lot of tools out there that say that they can help you find really relevant hashtags. What these guys do is that you can put in any hashtag and it'll show you in relevancy, for the most popular to the least popular, what other common hashtags get used with that one specific hashtag, and it will give you 100 other relevant hashtags. A lot of other ones only will give you maybe 30. And so you're able to go in there and you're able to do a search on one of your keywords. It'll pull up 100 other hashtags that are relevant to that in order of most popular to least popular. And you can simply just go in there, click on the hashtags you want, copy it, and then paste it to wherever you need to paste it. So it has really helped dramatically for us to find hashtags that we never knew existed, and it's a fantastic tool. As you can see, I had done it as well with Social Media Mastery, and it shows you the most popular hashtags in order of relevancy for if you were using this hashtag here for the conference as well. So it's a really cool, really awesome app. Unfortunately, if you go into the iTunes store right now, it's not going to be available, but it is one of those platforms that within the next, hopefully, couple of weeks, it will be available again, and one that I would definitely recommend for you to jot down as well. So the next slide is where I had promised that I was going to be sharing the content calendar that we've created. So we've worked with a number of different content calendars, and this is probably one of the biggest ones that we have found to be most effective. So I definitely encourage you to go online to my website, katstearns.com/content calendar, or if you follow me on Twitter, I just shared a link to the content calendar as well, and be able to download it. There's also gives you a bit more instructions of how you're able to use this calendar. The biggest thing that I want to encourage you is that with any type of content calendar tool app, don't use it just the way that it's meant to be used. Use it so it makes sense to your business. That you're going to hear a lot of strategies, a lot of ideas, and a lot of these concepts that really work well. But you might need to tweak them a little tiny bit to make them work for you and for your business. And I really encourage you to do that, because you have to make sure that you're using things that work for you, or else you're not going to use them at all. So I encourage you to download this calendar, play around with it, see how it works for you, test it out, and make any of those changes that you definitely want to be able to make for that. So I wanted to take a few moments now and just see if there was any questions that anybody had when it comes to being able to manage your social media and managing any different platforms. We got about 5 minutes for questions if anybody has any that we'd like to go over. Any questions? Yes. So the question was, should we still focus on Google Plus, or is it going down? So I'm not the Google Plus expert, so I'll give you my personal opinion. I think that Google Plus is going through a lot of changes. I think that there's a lot of benefits with Google Plus as well. We have found that by us posting content on Google Plus around keywords, around a lot of businesses, has really helped with our rankings, especially locally. As was talked about earlier today as well, that it helps for a lot of the people that are already in your network. So we find it to be very beneficial for SEO, for helping with rankings as well as that. So we find it to be very helpful. We don't find it to be that great engaging platform. So we've used it as a lot of our secondary platforms. It's really important to make sure that you do a search and you find out that you do have a Google Plus account and what is on there. We've worked with a lot of companies that they go in there and they find out that they either have the wrong address, they have the wrong contact information. So it's really important to spend some time to be able to do that. I think it was mentioned earlier as well, but I mean, one of the big things you want to do is you want to do a Google search on your name personally and on your company. You might be really surprised what you'll find. A lot of us think that we're going to be the first ones that pop up. It's going to be all of this great stuff. It's not always the case. You might find that there's another company somewhere down in the States that has the exact same name as your company, or you might find that there have been some reviews somewhere that aren't quite as favorable showing up as well. So really getting in there, doing searches on that can be very helpful. But to answer your question with Google+, we find it very helpful when it comes to for SEO and for search, definitely. Yes. Perfect. So the question was, when it comes to finding the right audiences, what types of tools do we use to do that? Great question. So again, it really depends on the platforms that you're using. I really find Facebook has a lot of really great tools built into it to help us to do that. So we use Facebook a lot Facebook has changed their whole entire system where it's become very searchable. So if you go into the Facebook header, you can actually type in things like fans that have fans with interest, or the interest of fans who like whatever that page is. And so even if it's not your own personal page, you can go into Facebook and you can find out people that like a certain page, what other pages do they like? What other types of interests do they have? And you can start to learn a lot about your audience that way. We also like using tools. We do a lot of work with Twitter as well. Using tools like Follower Wonk is a really big one as well, where you can really start to dive in, putting in certain criteria of what you're looking for as far as demographic, as far as keywords and interest, and really starting to hone in and finding actual bios of individuals and people. So those are probably the two popular ones that we use as our good starting point to be able to try and really find out the interests of people. And then going into our Google Analytics and a lot of other more detailed ones as well. But those two are probably the ones we start with. Great question. Yes? I love that. So the question is, when somebody tells me that we can't get sales with social media, what do I tell them? So I'm going to kind of call out somebody, but not directly in here. So a couple of years ago, I went to a family member of mine and said, I think that you can sell log homes online. And there was a little bit of hesitation with that. And I really look at it and say that depending on your product or service, especially in a case of building custom log homes or building any sort of material like that, something that might have a longer life cycle or even a shorter one too as well, people want to be informed before they buy. We are so sick of being sold to, right? We all know that feeling of when you walk into a used car sales lot and there's a guy standing there waiting to sell you anything or the next thing that they have on the lot. So a lot of us as consumers, we do a lot of research online. We know more about the products that we're going to buy sometimes than the salesperson does selling it to us. So my response to that is that your customers are online right now searching for information. They can find it from you or they can find it from someone else. But when they find that information, they're going to start to build a relationship. They're going to start to build that like and trust, and they're going to become that new go-to. So what I like to do is I like to tell clients that are sitting there and saying, how is this social media thing going to work? Ask them to go and sit down at Google and type in a question that a client of theirs might be asking and see what pops up. If they don't pop up on the first page of Google or they don't pop up in any major social platform, chances are that they're missing out on a lot of business and opportunity because a lot of their clients are already doing that. So I think it's really important. And I don't look at social media as just being Facebook, Twitter. I look at social media as like anything you're doing online. So it's really important. And sometimes it's, again, starting out really simple. If your clients are going to be the type of people that are searching online and Google, creating content, answering those common questions that people are having is a really good way to start. And think about being the client, not being the company that's trying to sell something. That's a really big thing as well. Think like your consumer. Yes?
Thank you. Where you can look at your Instagram photo content before you put it live, so you can play with the tiles. Have you heard of that platform? No?
I'm not familiar with it.
It's like if you don't know where your photos will look the best, you can move them around.
No,
VSCO. Visco.
Oh,
apparently.
yes.
Thanks,
So Visco's a great app. You can do also a lot of editing, photo editing with Visco. So yeah, you can. Sorry, I've never kind of used it from that perspective, but yeah, Visco's a really great one for being able to create really good filters and imagery and editing your photos if you don't have a professional eye for it. So it's a really awesome app for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So I only have 5 minutes left here as well. So if you have any other questions, definitely feel free to come and talk to me between one of the breaks as well. But we'll just go to the next slide here too as well. So my biggest suggestion to you is that you're going to hear a lot of information here today when you leave, and you're probably really excited to be able to go and start to implement a lot of it. My biggest suggestion to you is don't write a list of 100 things that you're now going to go and take action on, because chances are you're not going to do it. Manage your time, manage what it is that you're going to be able to handle. So my suggestion is that you should be picking maybe 3 or 4 or 5 things that you're going to do, and you're going to do really, really well. So really taking some time to focus on that. Whether it's a new platform you want to look at again, maybe it's downloading a content calendar and really working through that and developing out your strategy for the year. But really, instead of just setting goals because you want to do these great big things, set smart goals. Set realistic goals and really start to put together a small to-do list. Don't feel like you have to do absolutely everything because you have a business to run. So just start to dabble in some of those things. My biggest suggestion for you to help you to manage your time is, again, focus on those key things you learned from today. Pick your primary accounts and start to focus on applying some of those strategies on those primary accounts, diving deep into those. Then start to focus on those secondary ones. What's some of the extra things you can start to take on? Really plan out that calendar. Really start to get your plan in place, and then start testing things, putting it on there. What works for somebody might not work for you. And something that didn't work for someone could very well work for you as well too. So test, play around, document it, see what works, and keep on learning, keep on trying new things. And who knows, maybe next year you'll be standing up here too as well. So hopefully you found this very helpful. Definitely please download that content calendar. You can check me out on Twitter as well too if you have any other questions. I'll be here for a little bit longer throughout the day, and I just want to say thank you very much to Ricky for having me here, and thank you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Let's give her a round of applause. Kat Stearns.